Welcome everyone. I'm going to chat with you about the Capricorn Full Moon. This is happening a day after Solstice. Where I am on the west coast of Canada, it's happening on June 21st, just after 6 p.m. Pacific time, so it could be happening on the 22nd, depending where you are in the globe. And this Capricorn full moon is important. It's important in a really big cycle that we're all part of, that's impacting us right now very personally and also collectively. And that is because this full moon is talking to Neptune through a square. So we have the sun has just entered Cancer. This is what this, in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer solstice marks. Southern Hemisphere, you're entering into winter. And I have a video that's really on the solstice energies linked below if you haven't listened to that. And then we get this full moon just after we enter through that solstice threshold. And so that gives us our sun, who's at the first degree of Cancer, and our moon is at the first degree of Capricorn. And we have Neptune, who's at 29 degrees of Pisces. Also a video on Neptune at the 29th degree of Pisces. I don't really think that we can feel into that significant moment in cosmic human history enough. I'll link that below too if you want to have another listen, if you've already listened to it, because there's so much going on with Neptune at that final degree of Pisces. And this full moon is talking to it. And I say this, it's part of smaller cycles and bigger cycles and bigger cycles. So one of the things that's just so important to mention right away is that the entire Cancer season that we're just starting with this full moon, we're going to have our Cancer new moon in 2 weeks, and then we're going to have another Capricorn full moon at the 29th degree. Sun will be at 29th degree of Cancer, and the moon will be at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And so that Neptune is going to be talking with the second Capricorn full moon as well. So you can also kind of envision the entire Cancer season that we're entering into as part of a cycle. And that is part of a much bigger cycle, because when we have our second full moon, that Neptune is going to be retrograde. And it's going to be retrograde for the Cancer new moon as well. So we come into this full moon right through the solstice threshold, and we have a full moon. That moon and sun are square Neptune, and then Neptune goes retrograde. Holy smokes. And we also have quite a bit of energy in Cancer, because we also have Mercury and Venus in Cancer as well. Venus is right around 4 degrees, 4 or 5 degrees, and Mercury is going to be around 9 degrees. And so, what's it all mean? You know, on the one hand, we have this Cancer Capricorn axis, and that's really important. And Cancer, you know, we come into Cancer season. Cancer is that first cardinal water energy. It is feeling into the self, especially having come out of a somewhat intense, perhaps somewhat is extremely for some of us, intense Gemini season that was mostly intense because of how the Gemini signatures were talking to our Pisces energies of Saturn and Neptune. We come into Cancer, the nurturer, the sign of water where we really need and want to feel into ourselves. And we are doing this on many personal levels, because we still have a sun that's journeying quite closely with Venus, feeling into what we need, feeling into what is of value to us in this moment, having come through Gemini season, feeling the shift, coming through a solstice shift that is really setting intentions to work with us in one of those cycles for the next 3 months. What do we need that's really nurturing to us right now, in a way that is also talking to that Capricorn moon. And Capricorn is an energy that is an archetype that is actually quite complicated. It's on my kind of top 3 of misrepresented signs in definitely pop astrology, but also a lot of astrology. And that's because a lot of attention to Capricorn is on aspects of it that are absolutely part of the archetype, which is the hard worker, getting things done, moving through the social system, and that's part of Capricorn. Capricorn is also much deeper and much wiser than that. And Capricorn takes us into the very structures of how we organize our lives in accordance to reality. And reality, well, that tide line is always shifting. When that tide line is squaring Neptune, that reality is shifting. And so this particular full moon that just starts off, right after solstice, could really be giving us insights into how our boundaries of our realities that we've been working with, possibly for our lives, most likely for our lives, are shifting. That Neptune at the final degree of Pisces is literally dissolving those boundaries so that we can work with this Neptune, who we're working with through to 2026, as Neptune goes into eventually a whole new journey around the zodiac through Aries, so that we can come into alignment in a very, very kind of higher echelon of our spirituality, and that spirituality can eventually come into being embodied in a new way, which is fully happening when it moves into Aries in 2026. But we're going to have tastes of this before then in 2025. And those themes are absolutely coming up in this full moon. And something there may be being illuminated, and this is a wonderful time in a nurturing way, firstly, potentially to spend some time alone, to nest up in a way that's productive. We kind of have this society, and also it can happen in astrology, that really unfortunately creates this binary between, like, either I'm resting and I'm doing nothing, or I'm working and I'm being productive. Oh my gosh, let's throw that away. Rest. Active rest is productive. It allows us, firstly, to allow the body-mind to get regenerated. And if we've been working too much or going too long, then we need to rest longer because we need the regeneration. But it's not doing nothing. Even when we're doing nothing, we're being active in that realm of meaning making for our body and our mind. And Cancer is the reminder that we need to be there, that we're actively nurturing ourselves. And we have the Sun, Mercury, and Venus all in Cancer, suggesting that there is a lot of nurturing that has to happen right now in terms of our identities, in terms of our energy, in terms of how we even formulate thoughts and understand ourselves and make meaning, that we're going through a short season of really needing to come into some active rest and nurture and nesting so that we can feel into. Cancer requires time and space to feel. It's a water sign. What is emerging, how it is feeling. Cancer, Cancer needs space. Sometimes it needs to speak through tears or laughter or poetry or just a jumbling out of words, because Cancer is not really here to articulate things in a way. There's other signs that do that. We're coming out of Gemini, and Gemini had potentially a hard time doing that because there was so much water, Pisces energy, talking to this Gemini season with Mercury and Venus and the Sun there. And So we're actively coming into some of that rest, yet with this full moon, so that we can perceive how some of the structures that we've most likely structured our life and our identity and our sense of purpose around need and want to dissolve. And this dissolving process is going on for a while, but this month gives us some real insights into it. And then Neptune gonna go retrograde. It's gonna be retrograde for our new moon, and it's gonna be retrograde for the next full moon in Capricorn. And that Capricorn full moon, our sun's at the final degree, 29th degree of Cancer, 29th degree moon at Capricorn, with that Neptune who's retrograde. And as that Neptune goes retrograde, it takes us up to like the very cusp, 4 minutes from entering Aries. It says, no, these humans, this co-creative dance is not yet ready. We got to go back. We got to reflect. We got to work through some more of those Piscean ways of being in the psyche and the body, and bringing them into life, and understanding and feeling and reclaiming intuition, so that we'll be ready in 2026. And some of these themes are coming up now. And so you may need to nest or rest during this full moon, so that those illuminations can come, because this is Capricorn, and Capricorn likes to have goals. It likes to have plans. It likes to have a movement forward. And yet part of the Capricorn journey, especially for folks that have strong Capricorn in their chart, is going through that sometimes it is a lifelong process of first usually making meaning in accordance to very conventional socialized ideas, and then going through an unlearning and separation process, so that the validation system no longer comes from the external sources, especially of socially constructed ideas of norms around an economic system and a very gendered system of identity, but comes from earth consciousness, comes from an elder wisdom that literally is rooted into the earth, and also rooted into sky, and also rooted into sea, because Capricorn is the sea goat, and intuits in an embodied way those boundary lines between what is known and what is unknown, and uses those shifting kind of boundary lines in order to Capricorn, the highest Capricorn is a healer, okay? In order to heal, in order to live life in accordance with those systems, right? And so what boundaries are shifting? What boundaries, are shifting so that your own alignment to your own sense of purpose is shifting? And the Capricorn energy of this first full moon and also the next full moon absolutely might bring up illuminations around purpose. And again, at this moment, that purpose wants to be aligned with a nurturing impulse. That purpose wants to be aligned with something that also allows you to feel present and feel whole and feel safe and loved, because that is what Cancer craves. Safe and loved in its little Cancer shell, walking on the earth, going this way and that way. It's so lovely to spend. I spend a lot of time with crabs on the beach, but to really watch them and watch their non-linear ways, and the way that they protect themselves, and the way that they come out and move. And when Cancer is non-linear. And it is nonlinear because that is how it moves in its environment, and that is what it's supposed to do. And so that's something to feel into during this time. And also, there's several layers, but one other layer that I do want to mention is what's Saturn up to. So Saturn is a ruler of Capricorn, so we want to look into that layer for another understanding of what's happening and how we can kind of co-create with these archetypes. And Saturn is in Pisces, and it is at 19 degrees where it has been for a while, and it is so slow, also getting ready to retrograde at the end of June. And that right there this is in process. We are in process, okay? So the kind of like go to Capricorn interpretation of check your boxes off, climb that social ladder, go make all your goals come true. This Saturn says, sorry, that was Saturn laughing. The Saturn says it's not going to work like that because we're in process. There might be some little things you got to check off because there's always things we need to check off in this life and do our best when we have the energy to make sure that we're taking care of certain things, you know, some of those kind of responsibilities. And yet Saturn is going so slow, about to retrograde. And as the ruler of Capricorn, it's like we are in process. We're in process and part of a cycle that's part of a bigger cycle that's part of a bigger cycle. And yet this lunation cycle, which is really helpful for kind of getting into the 2-week rhythms and makes those bigger cycles a little more manageable for our minds and bodies to check in with. We're in process right now. And those boundary lines are shifting. And how interesting that Saturn in Pisces is opposite Juno in Virgo. And Juno is where we come with integrity. She's where we give our word and we commit. And part of the way that we also need to make sure we work with Juno in an evolutionary astrology practice is that we absolutely reclaim Juno from any murdering role that in ancient patriarchal ways she certainly had, which also was incredibly damaging to her inner world and to her relationship with women. And in kind of the Juno reclaim, and especially in a Juno and Virgo, there's something that wants to be held with almost a sacred integrity. And that sacred integrity is coming up for review. And that absolutely relates into those boundaries and in the purpose of our life. What wants to come into review? What do we maybe have to change and let dissolve? And maybe we really committed to something and we were doing our Capricorn goat thing and we were working with it. And now Neptune at the 29th degree of Pisces is showing us an entirely different reality exists. And it is real. It is not an illusion. It is only an illusion if we want to stay in these walls of Capricorn that pretends it's not touched into such deeper life and rhythm and magic and healing cycles. And it's changing and reality is changing. And so this, you know, Juno there talking with that Saturn says maybe our commitments are changing and maybe we need to actually hold the revelation of that change as something sacred in our life because it is very important. Whew. The stakes are high, but don't worry. It's cycles and cycles and cycles. So we got like 1,000 chances to work with it. So it's all good. Let the stress go. Remember it's Cancer season and we're nesting and nurturing and getting into some of those little safe cocoons so that we create the space for our body, firstly, to open so that emotionally we can safely feel into what's present. And Cancer just needs to let it move. Cancer needs to witness for itself before it's all like, there's so much out there that's like, you gotta take your emotions and you got to tell everyone what they are and you got to have your voice and oh my gosh, yeah, okay, maybe that's part of it at points, but the first step is just feeling. And not like sometimes that takes us into projecting feelings and emotions onto people when we don't even need to do that. And that creates a whole type of mess. And Cancer needs to learn to create space and feel for itself and feel comfortable in what it feels and then move out. And how it moves out might be like that crab on the sand going in all different directions. And that's normal for Cancer. Okay, with that, I am sending Cancerian blessings and I will see you when I see you. Be well.